Hello everybody, and this is Xanor Kamatazi, and I am on my main, which is an assassin, and today we're going over the Deception spec. This is my hometown as I play Deception all the time. So, I'll be going over things to note under Discipline Path here. I recommend that you read over everything because I am only going over 3 things to note on here. I will also be going over the utility points, which I also recommend going through and finding what will match your playstyle, because what I have is what I personally use. Of course, I'll be going over the rotation, which really it varies from person to person, but I'll be going over the main things here. And at the end, I will also be going over some player tips. So let's get started. So under utility points, I personally use Avoidance, which reduces the cooldown of Duel by 2 seconds, Unbreakable Will by 30 seconds, and Force Speed by 5 seconds. I also use Formless Phantom, which has changed since the latest patch, which used to be where all specs will have a reduced to all damage taken while stunned by 30%. However, they changed it recently to where that is now only darkness. However, Deception and Hatred will have a reduced damage taken from area attacks by 30%. That's still rather useful, especially if you're going up Lightning Swords. Good things to substitute, you could use Snaring Slashes, where Voltaic Thrash and Voltaic Slash, as well as Lacerate, will reduce the movement speed of the targets they damage by 30% for 6 seconds. Or you could also use Lambast, where your Lacerate ability will have 25% increased damage. Under Masterful, I like to use Obfuscation, which increases your movement speed by 15% and your effective stealth level by 10. I also use Nerve Wracking, where targets controlled by your spike or electrocution will take 5% more damage from all sources. If you like, you could also use Fade, which reduces the cooldown of your Force Cloak by 45 seconds and extends its duration by 5 seconds. Or you could also use Speed Surge, which activating Shock, Ball Lightning, or Eradicate will increase your movement speed by 50% for 9 seconds, and the effect cannot occur more than once every 18 seconds. Under Heroic, I use Insulation, which any damage that breaks their Mind Trap prematurely will cause the target to suffer from Sapped Mind, which reduces the damage they deal by 25% for 10 seconds. And in addition, as a Deception spec, you will have an increase for your armor rating by 30%. I also use Dark Stability, where activating Deflection will grant 6 seconds of immunity to stun, sleep, lift, and incapacitating effects. And then the last one, I use Haunted Dreams, where if your Whirlwind breaks early from damage, the target is stunned for 2 seconds, and Whirlwind will activate instantly. This essentially causes us Deception Assassins to have a 4th stun. That's Whirlwind as a stun, that's Electrocute as a stun, Spike, as well as Low Slash. For me personally, I find that rather fun and very useful. Under Legendary, I use Renewing Darkness, where when you use First Cloak, you generate a stack of Renewing Darkness and heal for 4% of your maximum health every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Stacks last for 6 seconds, and when stealth is broken, each stack of Renewing Darkness will heal you for 4% of your health. Let's say you didn't like the Haunted Dreams aspect, or you just don't like Renewing Darkness. You could also use Hand of Darkness if you really wanted to. I personally wouldn't use it, but each to their own as far as having their slow slash immobilize their target for a second after the stun, and Mind Trap allowing them to have an increase to their next direct attack to have a 100% crit chance. That's also useful. Fanning Phantasm is a good substitution, where Phantom Stride can be used while immobilized and purges the move vampiring effects when used. And your force speed will cause you to have a phasing Phantasm shield to absorb 60% of all incoming damage for the duration of force speed. Retaliatory Grip is also an extremely useful one, where Deflection grants Retaliatory Grip, reflecting 50% of all direct single target tech and force damage back at the attacker. And it lasts for 12 seconds as well, but it does not absorb incoming damage. So the three things to note that I have here for you guys. Maul will sunder your target for 45 seconds, which sunder targets will have their armor rating reduced by 20%. Discharge will cause your target to become vulnerable for 45 seconds, which increases the damage the target will take by force attacks by 5%. And Lacerate will be able to build voltage, which the voltage will be going towards your ball lightning to have a chance to trigger the surge charge. Which surge charge is just based off of the first thing you read here, which is the energy we use. So I like to do is to go from start. Of course, we are the stealth. We are the rogues in this spec. If you play World of Warcraft, stealth equals fun, at least in my opinion. So some couple combinations here. From stealth, you have option of using Mind Trap, followed by Maul from behind your target. This is actually a fantastic way to get started, especially if you're going up against tanks in a duel, or even in a war zone. However, the alternative is you could go from stealth and use Spike, followed by Maul behind your target. You could go one or the other. From there, you could use Voltaic Slash. Then I will only use both Ball Lightning as well as Discharge when they are procced. Maul you could use whenever you're behind your opponent, or you could use it when it's procced as well. I will also use Reaping Strike when it is procced. But essentially, I use anything that's when it's procced. I'll be honest, straight up from there. However, I do use my stuns to get the edge as well. And I will use Assassinate when it is available. A good combination you could use is to use Recklessness, which will also cause a full stack to have a full effect of Discharge. And I will also use Ball Lightning when I'm using that as well. You will have 2 stacks. However, if you're spec for it, it will have a total of 3 stack. So that will also use 2 and 3 abilities via Reckless. So to show you, I am currently in Stealth. So I would either use Mind Step here, which will have no effect on the training dummy, same as Stun. I would use Mind Step, Mind Trap, followed by Maul. In this case, I would use Spike, which as you can see, my Maul is procced, so I would use Maul from behind my target. And then I would be using Voltaic Slash most of the time. Use Ball Lightning when procced, Raping Strike when procced, Maul when procced, and then same thing, Discharge, Ball Lightning, and Maul. When Raping Strike cooldown is done, I will be using Raping Strike again, like so. And as you see, you have a constant. Your abilities will be constantly procced, allowing you to constantly use your abilities. When they're not procced, Voltaic Slash is a great way to keep damaging your opponent until your abilities are procced. Now, as you can guess, procking is represented by the glow around your abilities, and that's what I refer to as the proc here. To get the edge, use the Yellow Slash at first, followed by your Electrocute or even Whirlwind. That will help you keep the edge in combat, or even to get the edge in combat if you seem to be struggling. And then Recklessness, like I mentioned, will give you full stack for static charge, which is max effect when you're using Discharge. As Deception, we use Force Cloak as our ally, which when you're spec with Renewing Darkness, we will be able to stay in there and heal up. That's one defense maneuver for us. However, we also have Overcharge Saber as well as Deflection. Because we only have these two abilities as defense, especially when we're going one-on-one, we do not have a companion to use Unity. Which Unity we will get from our Legacy for Light Attunement and Alignment. Which you would have to, in order to get that, you have to max out the Light Side Attunement. So essentially we have two defensive abilities, so we have to use them sparingly, especially since they are both at 2-minute cooldowns. We do have Force Shroud, which removes all removable effects and increases our resist force attack by 200%, but it's only for 3 seconds. So it goes great when you need to clear them in order to go into Force Cloak, so we don't get popped out of stealth far early and before we're ready. Jolt is fantastic against healers to keep them from healing. And really, we won't be using Mass Mind Control or Mind Control at all. Anyway, to continue on so for player tips, I went over the Unity. What Unity does, for having at least one character go light to unlock it, but I did not go over it. What Unity does is, as long as your companion is out, you are able to use it, and when you activate it, both you and your companion will have a reduction to damage by 50%, and it will last for 15 seconds. As you notice, I'm on my ship for this video and all my videos. You do not have to have any of the ship unlocks, as everything is available on the fleet. However, if you're like me and you like your privacy against training dummies, you can, under ship unlocks, you can unlock both the operations training dummy as well as the Warzone training dummy. You can unlock your repair droid, which will have items that affects training dummies. However, I have not have not purchased and used them to test out either theory. However, what both theories will be is either it affects the training dummy's health only for increasing, decreasing, and whatnot, and the other theory involves the items to change the training dummies as far as just simply by health, for increase and decrease, or even changing the training dummies to where you can test out your DPS, test out your healing, and even testing out your tanking. That's it. Figured out which one is which. For convenience, I recommend you maxing out the Legacy Fleet Pass, which will cause your Fleet Pass ability to have no cooldown. I also recommend you max out your Legacy Travel, where your Quick Travel will have 0 cooldown. And I also recommend getting the improved Priority Transport Personal Starship, where your Personal Starship Transport will have 0 cooldown, essentially allowing you to port around all day and potentially annoying your guild members or group members who are trying to keep up with you. You can also get tactical markers, which will allow you to mark where you want each role to be at, either in both operations and flashpoints before boss fights. Hopefully, will cause the fights to go a lot smoother. It's fantastic when you are the one in charge. I also recommend you get improved mounting, where you're able to mount while you're moving. I personally love this. I am addicted to it, and will not make another account unless I absolutely have to. Because I don't like taking the 2 extra seconds to stop, mount, and then start moving again. So for character perks, I recommend you get the ones you'll focus on under advancement, whether it be war zones, flashpoints, class missions, and exploration, where exploration goes hand in hand with class missions. For companion, I recommend you get Legacy of Altruism, where your companion gifts will provide 30% increase for companion influence. From those companion gifts. For Legacy of Promptness, I also recommend maxing out, where it reduces the time taken to give companion gifts to your companions by a total of 60%, going from the 3 seconds to give your companion gifts down to about roughly 1.6 seconds per gift. From travel, I recommend you get a Priority Transport Personal Starship, especially if you're going through your class story. It'll cost 50,000 credits. And why it's so helpful is because if you're in the middle of nowhere from anywhere on your planet, let's say you just finished a heroic mission, and you're in the middle of nowhere, and your storyline is telling you to go to your starship, you're able to click on the transport for a personal starship and go straight to the starship to continue your story, instead of having to go to the nearest flight path and take the speeder over to the spaceport. I also recommend doing the same thing for side planets, such as CZ-198 or the Black Hole, in case you want to go to those planets for heroic missions, or even to go to those planets and go in person in order to run your flashpoints. For convenience, I recommend you unlock all of them eventually, but the 2 to focus on will be the basic field repair droid, where you're able to sell and repair anywhere. And those in ops absolutely love it. And then I also recommend getting the field respec, as you will be able to respec anywhere instead of having to go to the fleet every time you want to respec. This is especially useful if you want to change specs to try out a different one, or if you happen to be in a role where you can go from DPS to tank, especially if you have the gear to tank, and your tank decides to drop Grove from Flashpoint, you can take up the role in his place. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys, and welcome to playing Deception Assassin.